The seatbelt sign flickered off, and passengers relaxed into their seats. Lily's small hands trembled as she tried to open the juice box the flight attendant had given her. The straw slipped, splattering a few drops on her faded pink dress. She wiped them quickly, hoping no one noticed. Mr. Donovan did notice, but only because the sound interrupted his typing. He glanced briefly, then returned to his glowing laptop screen. Numbers, deals, profits, the only things that mattered to him. The flight attendant leaned down beside Lily. "Traveling alone, sweetheart?" Lily nodded shyly. "My mom, she said my aunt will meet me when I land." "First flight?" She nodded again. "Mom said angels fly in the sky. Maybe I'll see one." The attendant smiled softly and moved on. Across the aisle, Mr. Donovan muttered under his breath, "Angels don't exist." A sudden bump rattled the plane. Gasps filled the cabin. The captain's voice came through, calm but tense. "Ladies and gentlemen, please fasten your seatbelts. We're passing through an air pocket." The turbulence worsened. The lights flickered. Lily's tiny hand clutched the armrest, knuckles white. She looked around, adults closing their eyes, murmuring prayers. Mr. Donovan reached for his water, but his hand shook. Then, suddenly, his breathing hitched. He pressed his chest, the laptop sliding from his lap. Panic flickered across his eyes. "Sir? Are you okay?" the attendant called, rushing toward him. He gasped, struggling to respond, the color draining from his face. No doctor was on board. The nearest airport was still half an hour away. The crew scrambled for the medical kit. Passengers whispered, some stood, some looked away, unwilling to watch. Lily unbuckled her seatbelt. She climbed down from her seat, dragging her teddy bear. "He's scared," she said softly. "Mom says when someone's scared, hold their hand." "Sweetheart, stay back," a stewardess warned. But Lily didn't listen. She walked right up to the trembling billionaire, who was slumped sideways in pain. "Sir," she whispered, voice trembling, "it's okay. Just breathe, please, breathe." Her small hand wrapped around his larger one, warm, soft, steady. Something in that touch, something innocent and pure, slowed his panic for a moment. His eyes met hers, wide, kind, fearless. I can't breathe," he managed. Lily turned to the flight attendant. "My mom gets like that sometimes. She says I should count with her. Maybe he can count too?" The crew froze, then nodded quickly. "Good idea. Let's do it, honey." 1, 2, 3, Lily whispered, counting beside him as the turbulence began to ease. Her voice was trembling, but she kept going. 4, 5, 6. The billionaire's chest rose and fell, steadier now. Oxygen mask on, his pulse slowed. For the next few minutes, the little girl didn't let go. She kept talking softly, about her teddy bear, her mom's stories, the color of the clouds. When the plane finally steadied, everyone exhaled. Applause rippled faintly through the cabin. But Lily didn't notice the claps. She only looked at the man whose life she'd unknowingly steadied, the man whose money couldn't buy what her small act of love had just given. If you were there in that moment, what would you have done? Be honest, comment your answer below. And if words fail you, just hit like to prove that compassion still matters. The flight attendant leaned close. "You did something very brave, sweetheart." Lily smiled faintly. "Mom says being kind doesn't need permission." Hours later, when the plane landed and medics rushed in, Mr. Donovan was stable. As they wheeled him away, his hand reached out weakly, and Lily placed her teddy bear in his palm. "For when you're scared again," she whispered. He wanted to speak, to say something, anything, but all he managed was a faint nod as the doors closed behind him. The terminal lights flickered over Lily's small frame as she stood there, waiting for an aunt she'd never met, in a city she didn't know. And somewhere, across that sterile hospital corridor, a billionaire lay staring at a teddy bear that smelled faintly of childhood and courage. His heart, for the first time in years, didn't feel so empty. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly in the quiet hospital room. Mr. Donovan lay still, wires tracing from his chest to a monitor that blinked in steady rhythm. His mind, usually filled with numbers and deals, was oddly silent. All he could see was that little girl's trembling hand clutching his, her wide eyes whispering courage when he'd lost his own. He turned slightly and saw the teddy bear sitting on the table beside him, a small, frayed toy with one ear hanging loose and a missing button eye. He'd held it all night. Every time he tried to put it down, something inside him told him not to. The nurse entered, adjusting his fore. "You're lucky, Mr. Donovan. If that girl hadn't kept you calm, it could have gone very differently." He frowned. "The little girl, where is she?" "She was taken to the waiting area after landing. Said she was meeting her aunt." He sat up, wincing. "Find her. Please." The nurse nodded softly. "I'll check what I can." He leaned back, his gaze fixed on the window. Morning sunlight streamed through, soft and golden. For the first time in years, he noticed how beautiful it looked, how alive it felt. Outside, in the airport terminal, Lily sat on a bench, legs swinging, holding a folded note her mother had given her. It read, "Be brave, my angel. Life might not be fair, but kindness makes it beautiful. Love, Mom." She smiled faintly at the words, then hugged her knees. Hours passed. Crowds came and went. Still, no aunt. A security officer approached. "Sweetheart, are you waiting for someone?" "My aunt," she said softly. "She was supposed to come." He frowned. "What's her name?" Lily hesitated. Mom didn't say her last name. Just Aunt Grace. The officer's expression softened. "Okay, let's find her together." They took her to the small airport assistance room. Lily sat quietly as they made calls, none of which led anywhere. Her aunt wasn't answering. Her mother's phone went straight to voicemail. Meanwhile, across town, Mr. Donovan was being discharged. His assistant, Michael, held the hospital door open as he stepped out. "Sir, you're meeting with the investors." "Cancel it." Michael blinked. "Cancel? But..." "Cancel," Donovan repeated firmly. His voice carried an edge of something unfamiliar, humanity. He looked down at the teddy bear he carried in his hand. "We're going back to the airport." The drive was silent. Every billboard and streetlight passed in a blur. 4 years, his life had been one meeting after another, one success piled on top of another, but this silence felt heavier. It wasn't loneliness. It was awareness. When they reached the terminal, he walked faster than his body should have allowed. He scanned every corner until his eyes caught a small figure sitting under a sign marked "Lost and Found." "Lily," he said softly. The girl turned, startled. Her eyes widened, then softened into a shy smile. "You're okay?" He nodded, kneeling slowly beside her. "Thanks to you." The officer nearby looked relieved. "You know this man, sweetheart?" Lily nodded. "He was scared on the plane. But he's better now." Mr. Donovan chuckled softly. "Yes, I am. Because you were brave." The officer excused himself, sensing the quiet bond between them. Donovan sat beside her, the polished businessman suddenly unsure what to say. "Did your aunt come yet?" Lily shook her head. "Maybe she forgot." He frowned. "Forgot?" "She's busy sometimes. Mom says people forget things when they are sad." Her words pierced him deeper than he expected. He took a deep breath. "Lily, do you know where your mom is now?" Lily looked down. "She's sick. That's why I'm going to Aunt Grace. The doctors said she needs to rest for a long time." He realized what that meant, the kind of rest that children should never have to explain. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small business card. "Here," he said gently. "If your aunt doesn't come, call this number. I'll help you." Lily tilted her head. "But, you're rich. You don't need to help me." He smiled faintly. "Maybe I do. Maybe it's me who needs help remembering what matters." Her small fingers traced the edges of the card. "Can I still have my teddy?" He laughed softly, shaking his head. "It's yours, Lily. But can I borrow it a little longer? Just until I stop being scared again." She nodded with a grin that could melt winter itself. As they sat quietly, he felt something shift inside him, a warmth he hadn't known he'd lost. Have you ever had someone help you when no one else would? Right, yes, and tell me their name. Maybe gratitude can travel further than we think. Outside, rain began to fall, soft, cleansing, almost like the sky was exhaling. Lily pressed her face to the glass. It's pretty, she whispered. Mom says rain means God's fixing something broken. Donovan stared at the streaks on the window. For the first time, he hoped that was true. He didn't know yet how, but he silently promised himself, this little girl would not be alone again. And somewhere in his chest, beneath years of greed and guilt, something fragile began to heal. The rain had slowed to a drizzle by the time they stepped outside. Lily's small hand clung to Mr. Donovan's sleeve as they crossed the parking lot. He held his umbrella low, shielding her from the wind. Where should we go, Lily? He asked softly. She looked up, uncertain. Mom said Aunt Grace lives near a place with tall trees and yellow taxis. He chuckled faintly. That could be half the city. Lily smiled shyly. Then it'll be an adventure. For the first time in years, Donovan found himself laughing, a real, unguarded laugh. It startled him almost as much as it comforted him. They stopped at a small cafe near the airport. Warm light glowed from the windows, and the smell of coffee and baked bread filled the air. He held the door open for her. Hot chocolate? He asked. Her face lit up. With marshmallows? Of course. They sat by the window as the waitress brought their order. Lily cupped her mug carefully, the steam fogging her tiny glasses. Donovan watched her, how she took small sips, how her legs swung under the table, how innocence could still exist in a world so unkind. Do you miss your mom? He asked quietly. She nodded. Every day. But she said when I see something pretty, I should tell her in my heart. So I do. He swallowed hard. That's a beautiful way to remember someone. Lily tilted her head. Do you have someone to tell pretty things to? He hesitated. No one had asked him that in years. Not really, he admitted. I used to, a long time ago. What happened? He looked out the window. I chose money instead of people. And one day, there was no one left to choose me. Lily didn't fully understand, but she reached across the table and placed her hand over his. Then maybe you can start choosing again. He stared at her, this little girl who'd lost everything, yet spoke like hope itself. When they finished, he paid the bill and slipped a generous tip under the saucer. As they stepped back into the street, Lily spotted a florist nearby. Wait, she said, running to the window display. Look. Sunflowers. Donovan followed her gaze. Dozens of bright yellow petals faced the light, defying the grey sky. My mom loves those, Lily whispered. She says sunflowers never stop looking for the sun, even on cloudy days. He smiled faintly. Your mom sounds wise. She is, Lily said proudly. She says being kind is like being a sunflower, you give light even when you're sad. Those words sank deep into him, reshaping something he thought was long gone. Inside the shop, Lily picked a single sunflower. This one's for her, she said softly, clutching the stem. As they walked out, Donovan found himself staring at her again, not with pity, but with admiration. He realized he'd spent his life surrounded by people who wanted something from him, deals, power, money, yet this child, with nothing to offer but kindness, had given him the one thing he didn't know he needed, purpose. Now it's your turn. Share one small good thing you did recently. Write it below so others remember that humanity still lives. Your story might light someone's path tonight. The clouds began to break apart, sunlight spilling onto the wet pavement. Lily lifted her face toward it, smiling. See? The sun came back. Donovan watched her closely. Lily, if your aunt doesn't show up soon, would you like to stay somewhere safe for a while? I can make sure you're okay. Her eyes widened. Like, your house? He hesitated. If that's what it takes. She looked thoughtful. Only if I can bring Mr. Teddy back when you're not scared anymore. He laughed quietly. Deal. They waited a little longer near the terminal phone booths. No call came. No voice answered the number her mother had written. The sky turned pale orange again, mirroring the moment they'd first met. As evening settled, Donovan called Michael. Prepare the guest room, he said. Michael, on the other end, was silent for a moment. "Sir, guest room?" "Yes. For a friend." A pause. "Understood." Lily yawned softly as they walked toward the car. The sunflower drooped in her hand, petals brushing against her cheek. Donovan bent down, adjusting her seatbelt as she settled in the backseat. She murmured sleepily, "You're different now." He smiled faintly. "Maybe I just remembered who I used to be." As the car pulled away, city lights blurred into streaks of gold. Donovan looked through the mirror, watching her drift into sleep, the teddy bear's absence in her arms replaced by quiet trust. And for the first time in a long while, he whispered a thank you into the night, not to luck, not to fate, but to a little girl who'd saved more than just his life. The mansion loomed quietly against the skyline as Donovan's car turned into the long driveway. Its towering windows reflected the city lights like empty eyes, once proud, now hollow. The gates opened, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel proud of what stood before him. He felt lonely. Lily woke up as the car stopped. She blinked, still half dreaming. "Wow," she whispered, pressing her face to the glass. "Do you live in a castle?" He smiled faintly. "Something like that." Inside, the house was spotless but lifeless, polished marble floors, grand chandeliers, expensive art that no one looked at. The echo of their footsteps filled the silence. Lily's eyes darted around in awe. "It's beautiful," she said softly. Donovan looked at her, then around the vast emptiness. "It used to be." He guided her upstairs to a guest room filled with soft light and cream-colored sheets. "You can sleep here tonight," he said gently. "If you need anything, I'll be right next door." She nodded. "Thank you, Mr. Donovan." He paused at the door. "You can call me Michael, if you want." She smiled. "Okay, good night, Michael." As he closed the door, something inside him shifted again, a warmth he hadn't felt since his wife had left years ago, taking with her the only laughter that had ever filled this house. He went to his office and sat behind the massive oak desk, staring at the teddy bear resting beside his computer. The little creature seemed to watch him, like a reminder of something simple and pure he'd forgotten. His mind wandered back to Lily's words, "Maybe you can start choosing again." He pulled open his laptop and typed Child Welfare Services, wanting to make sure she'd be safe if her aunt never appeared. But the thought of her being placed somewhere cold and unfamiliar twisted his stomach. That night, he didn't sleep. He walked past her door once, just to make sure she was breathing softly. She was curled up, holding the sunflower stem close to her heart. The next morning, the smell of something sweet pulled him downstairs. In the kitchen, Lily stood on a chair, flipping pancakes with one hand while holding her teddy's missing ear with the other. "Morning," she said cheerfully. "I made breakfast." He froze, the sight so domestic, so ordinary, it felt almost foreign. "You cooked?" She nodded proudly. "Mom taught me. It's not perfect, but it smells happy." He smiled. "It does." They ate together, laughter spilling into the room like sunlight. For the first time in years, he didn't check his phone, didn't open his laptop. He just listened to her chatter, about her school, her friends, her mom's favorite songs. After breakfast, she wandered through the garden, chasing butterflies among the roses. He followed slowly, feeling the strange peace of watching something innocent bloom again inside a house built on silence. "Do you work every day?" she asked, spinning in circles. "I used to," he said. "Now I'm not sure what I work for." She giggled. "Maybe work for smiles. Mom says those are the best kind of payments." He laughed softly. "You and your mom sound like philosophers." "She just says things that make sad days smaller," Lily said with a shrug. "Like when you can't see the stars, you just have to wait for the clouds to move." He stopped walking. Those words, so simple, so deep, cracked something open in him. That night, after she'd gone to bed, he sat by the fireplace, staring into the flames. He remembered his past, the people he'd ignored, the promises he'd broken, the love he'd let die because profit came first. And for the first time, the firelight blurred through tears. He didn't cry often. But tonight, he did. If that moment hit you hard, leave a red heart hash. Sometimes one little symbol says what our hearts can't. The next day, Michael, his assistant, visited. He stopped short at the sight of a little girl drawing in the living room. "Sir, who's this?" Donovan smiled softly. "Someone who reminded me what being human feels like." Lily looked up. "Hi, Mr." Michael blinked. Hello." She pointed to a sketch she'd made, 2 stick figures holding a teddy bear under a rainbow. "That's me and Mr. Donovan," she explained proudly. Michael looked from the drawing to his boss, a rare softness flickering across his face. "Sir, I'll cancel all your meetings this week." Donovan chuckled. "Good idea." The house was different now. The silence was still there, but softer, filled with echoes of laughter, little footsteps, and the sound of healing hearts learning how to beat again. As the evening light poured through the windows, he realized something profound. Sometimes, it takes a child with nothing to remind a man with everything what it means to be alive. And for once, that realization didn't hurt. It healed. Days passed, and the mansion slowly transformed from a museum of silence into a living home. Lily's laughter bounced off the marble walls like sunlight trapped in glass. The maids, who once worked in hushed tones, began humming as they cleaned. Even the butler, stern and gray-haired, started leaving little candies on the kitchen counter for the young lady. Donovan found himself waking earlier, making breakfast with her, and walking her through the garden before his calls. Every morning she'd ask, "Are you scared today?" And he'd reply with a half-smile, "Not with you around." But one afternoon, as rain painted silver streaks on the window, a letter arrived. It was creased and damp, addressed in trembling handwriting. The return address read Street Mary's Hospital, Palliative Care Unit. He froze, reading the name below, Anna Miller, Lily's mother. His heart tightened. He walked to Lily's room, where she sat braiding her doll's hair. "Lily," he said gently, kneeling. "Do you remember your mom's full name?" She nodded. "Anna Miller." "Why?" He swallowed hard. "She wrote to you." Her eyes widened. "She did." He handed her the letter. She opened it carefully, her small fingers trembling. Inside was a folded page, ink smudged from tears. "My sweet Lily. If you're reading this, it means I couldn't meet you at the airport. I wanted to, more than anything. But I was too weak to travel. Please don't be sad. There are kind people in this world, even if they hide behind frowns and fancy suits. Find one, and let them help you. The world isn't always cruel, sometimes it surprises us with angels we don't expect. Love you forever, my brave girl. Mom." Lily pressed the paper to her heart, silent tears slipping down her cheeks. Donovan sat beside her, unable to speak. When she finally whispered, her voice cracked like glass. "She knew she was going to die, didn't she?" He hesitated, then nodded. "I think she just wanted to make sure you were safe." Lily leaned into him, sobbing quietly. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her as if protecting something sacred, because, in truth, he was. The rain outside grew heavier, echoing the weight of the moment. When her tears finally slowed, she looked up at him. "Do you think Mom was right? About people being kind?" He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "I didn't used to believe it," he said softly. "But you proved me wrong." For a long time, neither spoke. The world felt fragile, but somehow, that fragility made it real. That night, Lily insisted on sleeping in the living room beside the fireplace. She said it made her feel closer to her mom, the warmth, the flickering light. Donovan stayed with her, reading her mother's letter again and again until she fell asleep. He studied her peaceful face and whispered into the quiet, "You saved me too, Lily. You just don't know it yet." The next morning, he made a decision. He picked up his phone and called the hospital number listed on the envelope. A nurse answered. "St. Mary's, how may I help you?" "This is Michael Donovan. I received a letter from one of your patients, Anna Miller." There was a pause. "Oh, yes, Mr. Donovan. I'm sorry. She passed away 2 days ago." He closed his eyes. "Did she have anyone?" "No. Just her daughter, Lily. She talked about her every day. She said she hoped someone kind would find her." His throat tightened. "Someone did," he whispered. That evening, he sat with Lily by the garden, watching the sunset melt into gold. He took a deep breath. "Lily, I need to tell you something important." She turned to him, clutching the teddy bear. "Your mom, she's not sick anymore," he said softly. "She's gone to heaven." Lily froze, her little face trembling as if the words had weight she couldn't carry. "So she's not coming back?" He shook his head. "No. But she's watching you. Proud of you." Lily looked down at her sunflower sketch from the other day. "Then I'll keep growing toward the sun, like she said." He smiled through the ache in his chest. That's exactly what she'd want. The two of them sat there until the stars began to blink awake. Be honest, could you forgive after what they did? Type forgive if you could, or never if it would break you too deeply. Later that night, Donovan opened his old laptop, not for business this time, but to draft something new, a letter to the Child Welfare Agency. But instead of asking for Lily's placement, he wrote, "I'd like to apply for permanent guardianship of Lily Miller." When he signed his name, his hands shook, not from fear, but from something that felt a lot like redemption. He looked over at the teddy bear on the desk, now patched up and whole again, and whispered, "We're going to be okay." And for the first time in years, he truly believed it. Weeks passed, and the house that once echoed with emptiness now pulsed with life. Laughter spilled through its halls like sunlight on water. Lily had brought color back into the mansion, literally. Her crayon drawings covered the fridge, the stairwell, even the study door. Every morning, Donovan found a new note taped to his coffee mug. "Good morning, sunshine sun with rays hash. Don't forget to smile today. Be brave, like Mom says." At first, he'd chuckle quietly at the childish handwriting. But over time, those little scraps of paper became his anchor, reminders that life, no matter how heavy, could still be sweet. One evening, while Lily sat on the rug drawing stars, Donovan walked in with 2 mugs of cocoa. She looked up, beaming. "Did you know stars never stop shining, even when we can't see them?" He smiled, setting the cups down. "And people like you never stop shining, even when the world forgets to look." She giggled, leaning back against his leg. "You sound like Mom." He froze for a moment. That word, Mom, still carried weight, but less pain now. "Maybe she's teaching me through you," he said softly. They sat in silence for a while, just watching the fire flicker. But beneath the warmth, a thought had been gnawing at him. Lily's guardianship papers were moving slowly. The agency still needed a home inspection, background checks, and interviews. He'd done everything right, but the waiting felt endless. He feared that one day, someone might knock on his door and take her away. The next morning, he dressed in a navy suit, one he hadn't worn in months. When Lily saw him, she frowned. "Are you going away?" He knelt down. "Just for a little while. I need to talk to some people about making sure you can stay here forever." Her eyes widened. "Forever?" He nodded. "That's the plan." She smiled shyly. "Then I'll draw something for when you come back." He ruffled her hair. "I can't wait to see it." At the agency office, Donovan sat across from a social worker named Mrs. Patel. She was kind-eyed but professional. "Mr. Donovan, I've reviewed your file. You've provided excellent support for Lily so far. But, are you sure you're prepared for this responsibility long-term?" He looked her straight in the eye. "She saved my life. The least I can do is give her one worth living." Mrs. Patel paused, then smiled faintly. "That's not a reason I hear often. Most people talk about obligation, not gratitude." "She reminded me I still have a heart," he said simply. The woman nodded. "We'll schedule the final inspection next week." When he returned home that evening, Lily ran to him, holding a sheet of paper. "I finished it." He unfolded it carefully. It was a drawing, stick figures again, this time 3 of them, Lily, him, and a woman with angel wings. Above them, in crooked handwriting, she'd written, "Our family, 1 in heaven, 2 on earth." He swallowed hard. "It's perfect," he whispered. That night, as Lily slept, he stood at her door and just watched. The soft rhythm of her breathing felt like the heartbeat of the home itself. He turned off the light and whispered, You've already changed everything, kiddo. But destiny wasn't done testing them yet. A few days later, Mrs. Patel arrived unannounced. Donovan greeted her politely, though his pulse quickened. "You're early," he said. She smiled. "Surprise inspections keep things honest." Lily came running from the garden, dirt on her hands. "Hi, Miss Patel." The social worker knelt. "Hello, Lily. How are you today?" "I'm good. Mr. Donovan said I can plant sunflowers in the yard so Mom can see them from heaven." Mrs. Patel's expression softened instantly. "That's beautiful." The inspection went well. The staff spoke warmly about how the house had changed, how their boss smiled more these days. As she prepared to leave, Mrs. Patel turned to him. "You know, Mr. Donovan, it's rare to see someone like you open their heart like this. I think she's exactly where she's meant to be." Relief washed over him like a tide. When the door closed, he exhaled deeply and turned toward Lily. She was standing there, holding 2 small pots. "One for Mom," she said, "and one for you, so you never forget the sunshine." He knelt, voice thick. "How could I ever forget you?" They planted the seeds together that afternoon. The air was warm, the soil soft. For once, he didn't think about meetings or markets. He just listened, to her laughter, to the rustle of leaves, to the quiet song of second chances. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Lily looked up at him. "Do you think love always wins, even when it hurts?" He smiled, eyes glistening. "I think love is the only thing that wins." If you believe love still wins, comment amen. Let's fill this section with hope. Maybe someone scrolling right now needs to see it. That night, after tucking her in, he stood at the window, watching the garden. Tiny green sprouts were already breaking through the soil, fragile, determined, alive. And in that moment, he understood what her mother had meant in the letter. Sometimes, angels don't fly. Sometimes, they just plant seeds. Spring came quietly. The garden that Lily had planted now bloomed with tall sunflowers, their golden heads bowing toward the morning light. Each day, she'd run outside barefoot, whispering something to the flowers as if delivering messages to heaven. Donovan often watched from the porch with a cup of coffee, smiling to himself, the kind of smile born not from success, but from peace. Lily had started school nearby. The mornings were a blur of mismatched socks, half-eaten toast, and hurried goodbyes. The house felt alive again, laughter echoing down the hallways, the smell of pancakes lingering even after breakfast. But beneath that warmth, Donovan carried a quiet fear, the fear of losing her. Her laughter had become the rhythm of his days, her presence the pulse of his heart. He knew one day she'd grow up and learn the truth, that her mother's death had been the bridge between their worlds. He wondered if she'd ever resent him for being on the other side of it. That thought haunted him. One evening, while helping Lily with her homework, she suddenly looked up and said, "Mr. Donovan, do you ever miss your family?" He blinked, taken off guard. "What do you mean?" "You know, before me," she said softly. "When your house was big but quiet." He nodded slowly. "Yes. I had a wife once. Her name was Clara. She was wonderful." "What happened to her?" He looked down, his voice barely above a whisper. "I forgot how to love her. I let work come first. And one day, I came home to an empty chair and a note that said, 'You forgot how to see the stars.'" Lily frowned. "That's sad." "It was," he said quietly. "But then someone came along and reminded me." She tilted her head. "Who?" He smiled, reaching out to tap her nose gently. "You." She giggled, but then her expression softened. "Maybe your wife can see the stars again now. Maybe she's watching you smile." He looked at her, truly looked, and realized that somehow, in losing everything, he had found what he needed most, redemption wrapped in the laughter of a child. The next morning, they visited St. Mary's Cemetery to place fresh sunflowers by Anna Miller's grave. Lily knelt down, her fingers brushing the carved name. "Hi, Mom," she whispered. "Guess what? I made pancakes all by myself today. Mr. Donovan burned one, but it was funny." He chuckled softly behind her, the sound trembling with emotion. "I told you I'd find someone kind," Lily continued. And you were right, angels do hide in suits. Donovan knelt beside her, his voice breaking. You raised an extraordinary girl, Anna. I'll take care of her. Always. Lily stood, holding his hand. Mom says you don't have to be perfect, just kind. He smiled through tears. Then I think we're both doing okay. On their way home, Lily leaned against his shoulder in the car, dozing off. He glanced at her reflection in the window, peaceful, safe, loved. And in that reflection, he saw something else too, himself, but softer now, gentler, finally human again. That night, they had dinner on the porch, fairy lights twinkling above them. Lily told him about her day, about the friend she made at school who didn't have a backpack, and how she shared her pencils. You did that? He asked, smiling. She nodded proudly. Mom says sharing makes the world less lonely. He leaned back, watching the stars emerge one by one. Your mom was right about everything, wasn't she? Mostly, Lily said, grinning. But she forgot to tell me how to make people happy forever. He looked down at her. You already do. A soft wind passed through the garden, rustling the sunflowers like a whisper from heaven. Donovan closed his eyes, feeling the peace he'd been chasing his entire life finally settle inside him. If this story moved you, don't scroll past quietly. Tap like, not for me, but for the soul who carried this pain and still stayed kind. One click can be your way of saying, I felt you. As Lily ran inside to fetch her sketchbook, he lingered outside, looking up at the stars. He whispered, Thank you, Clara. Thank you, Anna. For sending her to me. And in that stillness, beneath the shimmer of the night sky, he swore he heard laughter, faint, familiar, like echoes of forgiveness carried on the wind. The world, for once, felt small enough to hold in his heart. Months later, summer wrapped the city in a golden haze. The garden was now a small paradise, rows of blooming sunflowers, a swing hanging from the old oak tree, and the faint sound of laughter drifting from the porch. Donovan sat there with a book in hand, though his eyes rarely left Lily as she ran barefoot through the grass, her hair catching the sunlight like threads of gold. Be careful, sunshine, he called. I'm fine, she shouted back, giggling as she spun around, arms stretched wide. It was a sight he'd never tire of, a child who had every reason to be broken but chose to bloom instead. That evening, Lily came inside, holding something behind her back. Close your eyes, she said playfully. He obeyed, smiling. Okay, now open them. In her hands was a framed drawing, not just crayons this time, but colored pencils carefully blended into a portrait. It was of the three of them, Lily, Anna, and him, standing together beneath a glowing sky full of sunflowers. Above it, in neat handwriting, she'd written, Families aren't always born. Some are chosen. For a moment, Donovan couldn't speak. His eyes welled up, and he reached out to take her tiny hands in his. Lily, this is beautiful. She grinned proudly. It's for your office. You always said walls should tell stories. He laughed softly, brushing a tear from his cheek. Then this one will tell mine. Later that night, as they sat by the fireplace, Lily asked quietly, Do you think Mom and your wife met in heaven? He looked at the flickering flames. I think they did. And I think they are both smiling. She nodded thoughtfully. Then they are probably proud we found each other. He smiled, his voice gentle. I think so too. A few days later, Mrs. Patel returned for a final visit. The guardianship papers were ready. She walked through the house, the laughter, the warmth, the scent of cookies baking, and turned to him with a satisfied smile. Congratulations, Mr. Donovan, she said. It's official. Lily is now your daughter. He froze, the words sinking deep. Lily, sitting at the table, blinked in surprise. Really? Mrs. Patel nodded. Really? Lily's face broke into a radiant smile as she ran to him, throwing her arms around his neck. Does that mean I can call you Dad now? He swallowed hard, hugging her tightly. You already have been, sweetheart. They stayed like that for a long time. No words, just hearts finally finding home. That night, as he tucked her into bed, Lily whispered sleepily, Dad? Yes, honey. Thanks for finding me. He smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "No, Lily. Thank you for finding me." She fell asleep holding his hand, the teddy bear resting between them, patched, mended, whole. Downstairs, he stood by the window, looking at the stars. The moonlight fell softly on the sunflower garden, their tall faces turned toward the glow. He thought about everything that had happened, the flight, the fear, the hand that reached out and never let go. He'd spent a lifetime chasing wealth, only to discover the richest moment of his life came from a child's kindness on a stormy plain. And somewhere deep inside, he knew, redemption doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it whispers through small acts of love. Outside, a gentle wind stirred the flowers, and he could almost hear Anna's voice again. "Be kind. Even when it hurts." He whispered back, "I will." Then, for the first time in years, he turned off his phone, sat beside the fire, and simply existed, not as the man who owned everything, but as the man who finally learned what enough truly meant. The next morning, sunlight spilled across Lily's face as she stirred awake. She ran to the window, gasping. "Dad! Look! The sunflowers grew taller overnight." He walked over, smiling as the golden petals danced in the breeze. "They did. Guess they were listening when you talked to them." Lily grinned. "Then maybe Mom's listening too." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "I know she is." They stood there for a moment, two souls who had found home in the most unlikely place. Outside, the wind carried the scent of new beginnings. Inside, laughter and warmth filled every corner once more. The billionaire who had once counted profits now counted blessings. And the little girl who had lost everything had given him something priceless, a reason to live with heart again. The world wasn't perfect. But in that small house filled with love and sunflowers, it was enough.